Hello and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. Today we are continuing our adventures with Micah-10. Our previous episode went over the kind of early history of Micah, who they were prior to being an exo, even. Some of that early interactions between Micah and Cade 1 at the time. And then early, I say early, but like our first introductions to Micah as a guardian and being this kind of den mother to uh, unpartnered ghosts that kind of gathered around her as she traveled through, trying to find access to the Deep Stone Crypt, being led by these dreams. And in the wake of us, our player guardian, discovering Deepstone on Europa and unearthing it, we ended the last episode with Micah breaking in and finding her exo mind scan and all of the old memories that were still in it, and quite literally uploading them to herself.
I've been thinking about that for a while too. That's she truly is the only post collapse. Well, I guess that's a double thing because all guardians are post collapse. Uh, she is the only guardian that has access to her entire history, both as an exo pre collapse, so Micah's 1 through 10, and which would also implicate that she also has her memories of herself as the little kid on Europa writing letters to the traveler.
To some degree, because we know that Clovis had the ability at the very least to kind of vet which memories
Yeah,
went to the next version. Uh, Probably not the complete story, but at least more than any other Guardian save Crow has.
sure. Oh, shit. Because Crow was given everything. Well, Crow was given what Savathun deemed everything.
Right.
That's another one, too. Like, we can't be sure on that one either. Like,
Yeah.
we're pretty sure,
It
but
it seems pretty inclusive just from like the things he knows and the way he acts about with
yep,
people, but yeah, who knows if one little piece here and there has been omitted.
yep.
But so, using that as kind of our ending point last episode, this episode, we are starting with the much more current time where we, the player guardian, are finally introduced to Micah-10 proper uh, within the Final Shape campaign, or specifically like post campaign. Um, Chronologically, it's in this kind of nebulous time zone of you finished campaign mission 7 and world's first raid hasn't started yet. There is a period, a couple day period there where canonically the guardian was working with Micah to try and do whatever they could to assist with the weakening of the witness leading up to that raid. And this whole process, all of these quests and missions were called the covalence missions. Um, and it is in the cinematic immediately after the end of the campaign mission where uh, I guess quick spoiler warning. If you're here at this point, I assume you know we're delving into final shape stuff, but quick spoiler warning.
I was going to
Uh,
say we're 3 weeks in now.
yeah,
Please go beat it.
just go play. It's
just,
worth it.
just
Just
go
go
beat
play
it. We promise it's good.
it. But so you finish the iconoclasm mission. You are fleeing from the witness. Mara swoops down in the helm and like transmats you out, and you are all able to escape. And it is here where Mara is talking about like, yes, I've collected our allies. I have, Keitel and the Cabal. I have Mithrax and the House Light, and all of these people. And one of the people she specifically mentions as an ally that has joined her is the Guardian Micah-10. Uh, Micah is introduced as this ally that's come to join the fight in the Pale Heart. And when we talk to Micah in the first kind of like hollow projector cutscene esque thing, she explains that she has come to the Pale Heart because some of her flock of ghosts have felt called here. Uh, and the main crux of the missions we are performing for her during this time period to help heal the traveler is going out and saving some of these ghosts from her flock that have become lost in the Pale Heart. Uh, so it seems like they arrived here and those ghosts kind of like just spread out or like immediately went around to different parts of the heart of the traveler that they felt were in particular need of a little bit of extra light or of study to try and discover what was going on. And uh, at least some of those ghosts have not come back. And Micah has kind of come to this idea that the ghosts are made of light, they're from the traveler. If we are able to go out and save these ghosts and bring them back to the source of light, uh, that is kind of uh, the base for it is the old tower within the Pale Heart, which is kind of cool. Um, that like those ghosts can be reinvigorated by being closer to the traveler's light, and by by that connection, they can also provide the traveler with some of their energy and like hopefully help it fight off the witness's advances.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I like this. I like this idea of like finding these ghosts. Um, it's one of those things like the campaign really hits it a lot too, and especially Cade. You know, we're all connected: guardians, traveler, ghosts, in the light. And so to me, it makes sense. And again, we'll touch more on Micah and why those ghosts are following her. I think we touched a little bit on it last time. We'll touch more on it this time and next time. But uh, Micah has a very close connection to the Traveler ever since
Yes.
she was a little girl. Like she was getting visions from the Traveler in the form of dreams, um, and that was again. And I don't know. Remind me again, Myth. Were there speakers during the Golden Age?
Uh, yes. So, and I suppose we can just touch on this right now because it is relevant to kind of what goes on. Uh, we know from our readings on the Constellations lore book, which we have an episode on, that was all about the various speakers throughout the ages. The very first speaker, and I believe the first two technically, I was during the golden age. Like
Okay.
they started receiving these uh dreams and messages, and it was implied to me in that book that the messages that the first speaker got from a quote unquote uninjured traveler were much clearer, were much more
Yeah.
concise. And
Well, and were possible actual speaking.
yeah, yeah, and definitely seemed to be more less of the imagery and more of like exact ideas.
Yeah. Because that was where that's the one where and I think it's that very first Constellations lore book where you have the four tenets that the traveler hands out that then somehow between then and now have been, you know, misconstrued or misinterpreted into what the current tenets are.
Yeah. And and yeah, that very first speaker was speaking to crowds about these tenets during the golden age. And the second speaker is, and I think it is a different speaker. I'd have to go back and look to be sure, but it's implied that second speaker lived through the collapse, and their kind of end of their life was in the years following the collapse. And we don't necessarily have a idea of time frame between speakers, but there's a couple of things that have always been true of those speakers, and that the speakers have looked for in other people to kind of designate who their heir would be, like who the next speaker they should be training up is. Um, and uh, what is described as the things to look for, at least in a post collapse age, are people receiving visions, uh, and ghosts kind of innately just flocking to them, like being drawn to them in a way. And we see that in the speaker in D1. There's always these unpartnered ghosts just kind of floating around, providing counsel to the speaker. Uh, and it is interesting that there never seems to be a correlation between the speaker in D1 and Micah, because Micah would have existed at the same time.
Right.
Like Micah was around for, when Tallulah was Hunter Vanguard, and she found Andal Brask, uh, and sent him to Tallulah, which there was a correction on our last episode, and I appreciate this, that Andal Brask was not the Hunter Vanguard immediately after Tallulah. Technically, it went Tallulah and then Caliban, and then I think Andal.
Oh.
So,
See,
thank
we
you for
do
that.
most of our homework.
Every
And we
now and
let
then
you
something
guys do
slips
the
by.
rest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lore in here, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, do appreciate those clarifications, because that is
Glad to see people are paying attention too. Like, it's
yeah, it's
glad to
good,
see we're
and
not
it's
the
good
only
to
ones
know.
that are like that are like, oh well, this happens and this happens, this happens. Somebody else is out there going, wait a second, didn't that happen in between these two?
Yeah, so that was Andy Scout that sent that in. So thank you for that. But regardless, there we know the speaker was around at the same time as Micah. Micah is a hunter, did not want to be in the tower. By all accounts, was out wandering the wilderness a majority of the time. Maybe they never cross paths in a way that the speaker went, "You have like 8 ghosts following you. You should come talk to me." Like,
That's that's what keeps kind of eating at me a little bit is Mike has been this way essentially since birth
yeah,
of being connected to the traveler. And now as a guardian being rezzed and having all these ghosts follow her, nobody seems to have been like, hey, you're really, really similar to what the speaker does. Are y'all like brothers or something? A sister? Like what's going on over here? Everyone just kind of like accepted it. But again, like to your point, to be fair, at her very heart, she is a hunter. Like she's always had the tug to go out, not to stay in an office or anything like that. And I think that's just the very nature of hunters. So because of I think more because of that than anything that I think that's what really kept her from getting connected with the speaker and getting connected with the traveler since since everything since the beginning of
yeah.
time.
Yeah, well, and her, as we saw in that last episode, her like driving force for pretty much her entire life as a guardian up until we discovered Deepstone was to find Deepstone.
Yeah,
And like at first, it was just find a ship that can get her off planet so that she could go out and look for Deepstone outside of Earth. And who knows how long that took? Presumably a quite a long time. And then even then, she had to start that search outside of Earth, and there's so many potential places there, and even
this is
on
like true searching
Europa.
too.
Right.
They didn't have Google.
Yeah.
They didn't just have some big old database of just like, where is this image? This is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, they can't just be like, "Hey, Ghost, directions to Deepstone Crypt."
I want, I, I want Ghost as my GPS navigator now in my car. Just be like, Ghost, get me directions to XYZ.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. So, um, never really crossed paths in that way, but it is very, very clear reading constellations and knowing some of that information from, Micah as a guardian and as a child. Micah was, for lack of a better term, a speaker. Whether she assumed the role officially in, all of the political stuff that comes with that or came with that in the tower, she is a speaker in regards to her connection to the traveler and the light. Uh, and so she followed her little flock of ghosts here to the Pale Heart, uh, and asks us to go find some of them that have not returned. We do so. We go out and find the first one. I'm not going to go line by line with her dialogue because there is a lot in these quests, but I want to hit kind of the main uh, themes, and some things are going to be more relevant to subjects outside of Micah, but this is where we're introduced to those subjects, and I think it's worth at least noting them and giving a little bit of background on why that was a like, oh shit moment when it happened in game. So the first ghost we go out and find, nothing of particular note as far as like dialogues here, but what does happen is when we bring the ghost back, like greenery begins to grow in the tower sanctum where uh, we've returned this ghost to where kind of Micah's hollow projector is. And although we didn't have any dialogues kind of leading us to go get that ghost, when we bring the ghost back, Micah makes some really interesting observations. She says that she is reminded of the teachings of Ulan Tan, who had a very controversial viewpoint on the light and dark during their time. Um, Micah says that she can't help but think that there is weight to his theories that all light is connected to itself, that guardians, ghosts, and the traveler are quote unquote made of the same stuff. Now, Ulantan is a name that, for me, when I first heard this dialogue, I was like, I think I've heard that somewhere before, but I didn't make a connection at all as to like who Ulan was or why their theories were important or controversial.
Yeah, that was the same for me.
Digging into Ulantan has been fascinating.
Is
So,
this a slight tangent episode within an episode?
yes and no. We'll see how off the rails we get. Uh, so Ulantan is, or was, I guess, a warlock who had, at the time, and this is all the way back like pre D1, had very controversial opinions on light and dark. And in fact, they had a couple of tenets of their teachings, or a couple of like main points of their teachings, um, that we know now are likely true. So the first tenet or the first teaching was that light and dark must coexist, and one balances the other in a symmetric relationship.
How did nobody pay attention to this guy? That's like the most true thing ever. I guess I can kind of see like pre now. Everything was like light good, dark bad, stay away from dark. And the few instances that we did have of Guardians messing with dark were things like Dredge and Yor, and that was bad. Like he went fully to the other side of the spectrum and was like, no, this is where life needs to be at.
Yes, 100%. That was the thing, is that at the time, light and dark were not thought of as forces or powers. They were thought of as morality.
Yeah,
Like, and saying that, you know, well, evil exists because good exists, and they always must balance each other out, was not something that early city age people were okay with.
yeah,
Especially, the speaker again at this time being kind of like a religious figure in a lot of
yeah.
ways. Um,
Oh, I bet Dead Orbit had a fun time with this guy.
yeah. So this idea, light and dark must coexist. One must balance the other. And also in a lot of ways, Ulan Tan was the first one to propose the idea that light and dark are not tied to morality.
Oh
That
man.
light and dark are forces of the universe, not moral like cornerstones.
I have to laugh how similar Like, I mean, that's literally like, Galileo coming out and going, "Well, I'm pretty sure the Earth is not the center of the universe," and everyone going, "A witch, evil witch," and like that's I feel like that's super similar to what's happening here in Destiny. Like, we've gone way past that by now. Like, we've obviously, like, I feel like at the time that of Ulantan, that's literally what happened. Ulantan is like, "Hold on a sec. I can use this light in any way I want." Same thing with the dark. The darkness can use it in any way it wants. And some random guardian is running going around and going, "Witch, witch," and that's what's happening here.
Yeah, in a lot of ways that, it was a revelation that was not the societal thinking around light and dark was not ready for.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And in kind of an interesting way, similar to Osiris, Ulantan had this not a cult in the same way that Osiris's was, but a faction kind of form around his teaching that were called the Symmetrists,
Oh shit.
believing in this symmetric relationship between light and dark. Uh, the other thing that his teachings proposed was that all light is connected across space and time. And if all light and all dark are symmetric to each other, then all dark must be connected across space and time.
Dude.
Uh, and bringing forth this idea of like what we had talked about before, a statement from Micah that um, the traveler or light is non-linear. It does not experience time in a linear fashion.
Right.
Like all light that has ever existed across all of history, all all interacts with each other all at the same time. Similar to the idea of the Vex and their network.
Yeah. And if we're taking the symmetry thing, darkness is the same way.
Exactly.
Holy shit. But darkness retains. Well, again, the forces that are using dark for evil purposes are using it to retain memory and like mess with. Well, no, because darkness, the force is a. I keep saying memory. That's not the right term here. Psychic.
Yeah.
Not psychic. Consciousness. Um, ideas. Thoughts is what darkness power is, whereas light is that manifestation of those conscious thoughts into physical form. I don't know why it's easier to explain the light than it is the dark. Um,
The light's more tangible. Like
yeah,
it's physical things
yeah,
versus, more
ideas.
nebulous ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. So like again, kind of going with that idea. I mean, presumably then beings like the witness would have access. I mean, with their mastery of both light and dark, I mean, they would have access to all these networks, for lack of a better term, of light and dark.
I mean, presumably, I don't know that the witness could necessarily tap into like see all of time and space as it
Sure.
correlated to light and or dark.
Well,
Um,
because if it could, like, it'd be able to
right,
predict things.
there'd be no defeating it. I
Exactly.
I think that this is not a truth of any beings that wield light and dark. I think at least not yet. I think it is a truth of the forces themselves.
Okay. Okay.
So like,
So it kind of have similar properties to energy. It can't be
yeah,
created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. Like light, all light that's ever existed will always exist, and that's all there will ever be,
and
type
it
thing.
just transitions through different
From
forms.
one to another. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Same thing. Same. And again, going on symmetry, darkness, same thing.
same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, to dig into Ulantan for just a moment, there are a couple of lore cards I want to read because this is such an interesting character that I didn't know about, and I'm gonna make maybe the presumption that a lot of people may not have been familiar with Ulantan prior to this mentioning by Micah. So I want to read a couple cards that kind of give us some information around Ulantan's direct wording of things. So the first comes to us from the Thousand Wings ship. from the Warmind expansion that I believe came from Whisper of the Worm, the original
Yes.
Whisper of the Worm,
Is that my ship?
the Taken ship.
Yep, the
Yep.
Taken version of the original Taken King
Yeah. Yep.
uh, muscle and bone ship. Yep, yep,
Yep.
that's my ship.
So, A Thousand Wings, and the lore card on it says this: a statement from Ulan Tan. The demiurge of the hive is the worm. The demiurge of the vex is the thought. The demiurge of the fallen is ether, which is survival. The demiurge of the cabal is authority. These are the things, both constraint and power, which define the universe of possible actions. These are the rule makers and instruments which enforce reality. Give a power to a guardian, and they will know that power as a weapon. For when a guardian chooses to alter the world, they do so with the bullet and the blade. Grant a guardian godly power, and that guardian shall fashion it into a perfect rifle. The demiurge of the guardian is the gun. But we must remember that the demiurge is not the god. It is only the thing that converts perfect divine will into imperfect material form. We may wield the demiurge, but if we do, what god wields us in turn? And that's the end of that card.
Dude, that's some deep thinking shit.
Yeah.
That's some that's some deep thinking warlock shit is what that is.
So Demiurge, and I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but translates into or is a word meaning creator or craftsman or artisan. So in this way, the the core concept that crafts the hive is the worm. The core
Yep.
concept that
Their
crafts the
driving force
vex.
type thing.
Yeah, exactly. For fallen, it is survival, which for them it equals ether. For the
Yep.
cabal, it is authority, having this like hierarchical, authoritative structure. For
What
guardians,
I command is what is under my command is
yeah,
is my greatest strength. Yep.
exactly. For guardians, it is weaponry. It is I want to enact violence out onto the world.
See, and that's an interesting concept too, because I don't know why I've never really like put much stock into this idea of why we're guardians resed. Like,
Yeah.
but it truly is like, and again, thinking back to the end of the campaign where our guardian, we're holding our dead ghost, and we're like, he's calling out to the traveler like, you raised an army, and I truly think that's what guardians were. Um, Specifically, like as soon as the traveler left the witnesses people, it just kept jumping system to system to system, looking for a people that would fight and would and maybe this was presumptuous of the traveler or something, but that would fight in the traveler's name and say, I will defend the traveler, I will defend this land. And I don't know that any race really did that. Like, they got their golden age and they were like, oh, neat, how do we use this to our advantage type thing. And the traveler's like, well, that's not exactly what I was meaning, but you know what, I'll hang out here for a bit. And then of course darkness shows up and everyone's like, oh shit, darkness. And the traveler's like, fuck, next race, let's try this again. um so yeah, I truly feel like the guardians are an army.
So, an interesting point with the traveler civilization hopping, because I think we can say with absolute certainty that the traveler has a form of sentience. It has
I'm
its
I'm
own will.
100% there now.
It has its own thoughts and wants and ideas. So it made a conscious choice to leave those civilizations.
Yeah, and the only reason I think it would do that, again, under the idea that it is trying to raise an army to stop the witness, um, it like it looks at whatever civilization it stopped at the time, and thinks through kind of like a few set ideas of like, is this race willing, is this race capable, does this race have the fortitude and knowledge and willpower to take down something as powerful as the witness. And if the answer is no to any one of those, it's like, I've got to find something else. And like, I'll stay here as long as I can and help you prepare, but it's up to you. And again, kind of having that misinterpretation between the traveler and whatever people it stops at. The traveler thinking, well, it's up to you as a people to do with these powers what you can, and then you will probably also need to leave.
Yeah, and it's as far as like why it stayed with us, I think there are two explanations that have evidence. Like there are many theories out there, but I think there's two explanations that we have actual like written evidence we could point at. Uh the first is it may have been trapped here by the nine. And I pull that from the Constellations lore book, where there is a
Yep.
mentioning of the traveler saying it feels nine forces keeping it in place,
Yep.
which isn't confirmation it was trying to leave, but the nine weren't going to let it leave. Uh, the other thing that I think is very unique about humanity that is not has not been present in any of the other races as far as we know is we've said this before in our like light and dark episodes. Humanity seems to be the only race thus far that has had the capacity to wield both light and dark and not need some kind of I,
Conduit.
yeah, I guess the ghost may be the conduit for light, I suppose, but
We haven't seen
we
a
haven't.
guardian access light without a
True.
ghost.
This is
And
true.
we haven't seen guard like once a guardian loses it ghost. I mean, we even in the final cutscene, as soon as ghost dies, like our guardian has that like that blip out of itself,
Right.
and there's like a light shadow,
Yeah.
a little light silhouette left behind, similar to what happened when Gaul encased the traveler. So maybe light specifically, because even the splicers of the Elixni have their splicer gauntlets. Like
Right.
maybe the light, because it requires, or because the light is manifesting things in physical ways, it needs some type of physical connection. But darkness doesn't necessarily need that, because it is all just consciousness. It's all, what can I think up in the moment,
Hmm.
and doesn't need that physical connection to it.
So I think that that's one part, not to dive too far down that rabbit hole, is that like
Oh, we've
humanity
gone complete tangent now.
humanity had access to things that no other race did. Like we were more in tune with these forces than any of the other races. I and that is supported by the fact that, as far as I'm aware, none of the other races ever had speakers.
The closest I can think of would possibly be Mithrax.
But Mithrax has never
He's never talked
heard
about dreams or heard or
right.
anything,
Like
but like he is the closest that I could think of, because and again, I think of the time that he was teaching his daughter about, communing with the light and stuff like that, and he I think he's come close, but again, I think you're right. Like I think humanity is the first one that's ever been able to experience the dreams of the traveler in such a tangible form, I
right.
guess, as tangible as his dreams can be.
Like I see Mithrax as a religious figure, as someone
Sure,
that
sure,
has a lot of understanding around how he believes the light works and what its intentions are, and is very confident and steadfast in his beliefs. But
absolutely.
that doesn't mean that the travelers ever actually told him anything, and
Yep,
I don't
yep.
think there's evidence to suggest it has.
And I think he might think of himself as a speaker a little bit, but a speaker in the sense that like the way the D2 speaker said it, like I said I speak for the traveler. I never said it spoke to me.
Yeah.
Like I think Mithrax might have that level of connection. Like it it, Mithrax wants to speak for the traveler, but doesn't actually commune with it.
Yeah. And so the last thing I want to poke at on this particular lore card for the Thousand Wings, Ulantan says, if we wield the Demiurge, if we are controlled by whatever our driving force is, what god is wielding us? Like if
The
we,
hierarchy of hierarchies.
yeah, and that is something we will absolutely touch on. Probably not even in the Micah stuff, but that has so many implications that we actually have some supporting evidence for.
I
Uh,
know. I have to give up my 99.1. I have to go 100% now.
but so moving on to another quick little excerpt from Ulantan. This is on the Solstice Bond back from Season of Arrivals. And here we have an excerpt from Ulan who says, light cannot exist without darkness. They are a bonded pair. They beget each other in eternal symmetry. They are as one. If we claim knowledge from Sister Light, then we must also claim knowledge from Brother Dark. The traveler shares only half of life. Darkness provides the rest. We must know the dark to know ourselves. We must balance or perish. The idea of embracing the darkness, even to learn from it, was the final provocation, one that the vanguard could not let stand. So while the true provenance of the documents of Ulantan remain unknown, punishment was meted out against Ulantan for having let the cat out of the bag. Though authorities throughout the system attempted to discredit him, essentially forcing him into hermitage for the latter half of his life, it speaks to the persuasiveness of his ideas that symmetry is still a widely studied philosophy, and it remains a controversial, some would say heretical, as controversial today as it was during its inception. That's the end of that lore card.
Yeah, I
So,
think I think that idea of symmetry is, I mean, all throughout these Micah quests, she talks about how like the the um the traveler has growth, and like even with growth there is still um there still needs to be that what would you call that? I guess it's like the pruning of overgrowth. Like if there is too much growth, yes, it does need to be cut back, but that doesn't mean we need to cut out all growth.
right.
And I want to say the witness poked at us with this idea or something. I can't remember where this idea came from, but like the idea that like the gardener is not like the gardener uses tools, i.e., light and dark, to help the universe as a whole.
Yeah, that was something we had kind of mulled around as we were progressing through the campaign the first time, was like
Okay.
a gardener isn't someone that just plants and then walks away. Like a
Yeah.
gardener tends their garden. They plant
Yeah.
things, they prune things, they pull weeds, they do the entirety of the act of gardening. Uh and the idea that perhaps the tools of that gardener are the light and dark. Uh but
See, and that's
that's
where
a
I keep coming
whole
back to.
nother
I know that's a whole
everything.
nother thing, but I want to poke at this for again just one more second. The whole aurora coming out of the traveler of being light and dark, and it's just kind of like bleeding, these energy forces out into the world. I'm I don't know. I'm starting to think there's a lot more to the traveler than just a sentient being of light. I'm starting to think more and more and more that the traveler has played a bigger role in the universe as a whole, and quite possibly is like if if it is the gardener and those are its tools, like I don't know. I feel like the traveler isn't truly fully light, and I think that the darkness being there with the traveler, I think that's supposed to be that way. I
Yeah.
think that's like the original creation of it. Again, going back to the idea of like, what if the veil is the traveler's heart or its mind or its consciousness, and that's why it was when it was separated, like it can't talk to anyone, or it can't, like, it has to speak in riddles and dreams and shit. Like I don't
Right.
know. It feels like a piecemeal together tinfoily hat idea, but I don't know. It just something in me like pulls at this idea and says, I think this is what's going on.
Well, if we take Asa's statements at face value, she describes the traveler and the veil as being two parts of a whole.
Yeah,
Like that implies that light and dark, traveler and veil, were once one whole in
yeah.
some manner. So I think
And
you're
again,
on track.
thinking with that symmetry idea, like one can't exist without the other.
Yep.
It has to be this harmonious balance. And I mean, that's the whole premise behind prismatic. Like, we as guardians have been able to wield the light and wield the dark separately. What's to say we haven't found that balance of light and dark? Like, that
Right.
exists within us, and we can. Then that's where we just pull it all together and go, okay, how do I use these powers as just a force, as tools?
Well, and I haven't thought of it this way until right now, but it's not even like we are truly weaving some of that together, even in a mechanical sense in game. Like a perfect example is I can build prismatics that when I throw an arcane needle, it gives me radiant, a solar
Yeah,
buff from a
yeah,
dark, attack.
yeah.
Like that is we have
We have found
found a
balance.
balance. Yeah.
I can shoot things with a light gun, and as I'm getting precision hits, I am severing targets with darkness.
Yeah.
It's like those two things shouldn't, in I say shouldn't, in previous understandings of the light and dark, that shouldn't be possible. But the fact that that's even a thing and that we're able to do that willy nilly, like, that shows that symmetry has to exist. You can't have one without the other, and that they are just truly tools. Like, it's you as a individual that decides how to wield these tools.
Yeah. So the last reading regarding Ulantan, this is just providing support for that, like light is connected across space and time. This goes all the way back to D1. This is the lore card, or the grimoire card, I should say, for the Chamber of Night. During, I believe, Dark Below, or maybe even before Dark Below. But we discover this is a mission that, if I recall correctly, the Hive have like picked up a shard of the Traveler and are enacting dark rituals on it to like prevent the Traveler from healing.
Sure.
Uh, and the Chamber of Night Grimoire card says, your discovery is perhaps the greatest of our time. If the Hive were able to infect the Traveler through this long lost shard of its battered shell, Ulan Tan's theory may be true, that all light remains connected across space and time. We cannot let our enemies use this power against us. And that is the little statement from Ikora regarding that. So, and again, the symmetry, if all light is connected across space and time, all dark is
Yep.
connected across space and time. Uh, so just some supporting evidence for Ulan's stated kind of teachings. And we talked in depth about it. I think we can all agree that, yeah, he was onto something.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. See, warlocks aren't as crazy as you think they are.
Yeah.
Osiris was onto something, and we exiled him. Now he's like our best friend. Though he did get possessed by Savathun for like a whole year, and then like maybe possibly could have destroyed all of humanity, but then like stopped Lakshmi. But by provoking Lakshmi, I it's whatever. Warlocks are crazy.
Details. Details.
Exactly. Was
Uh,
Shayera a warlock?
no, Shire is a hunter, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah, because she has a Titan and Warlock in her fire team.
that's right. That's
Um,
right. See, even hunters are crazy too. Hunters
Different,
have a lot.
different kind of crazy.
Hunters are a different type of crazy. Little more problems in the hunters' heads than the warlocks' heads.
In that hunter's head, at least.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's only the first ghost. We're not gonna spend that much time on all of these.
Try not to.
So the next ghost, I had to laugh. The next ghost's name is differential calculus.
I
Uh,
love it. I love these names that these ghosts have given themselves. Like, is this ghost really obsessed with math that much that that's the name it's given himself?
it seems like it.
And if that's the case, Jesus shit, man.
Right?
I don't
but
want to. I don't want to learn anything from this ghost.
but so differential, I we go out and find, and when we bring them back, they upload data to Micah, which shows that yes, the ghosts are helping the traveler heal. Like bring the ghosts coalescing within the pale heart is giving the traveler energy.
So
I
that to me is a two-part thing.
Mhm.
One, does that mean that the ghosts themselves have their own like amount of light? And I can't say amount of light because again, if everything's connected, it's being pulled from somewhere. We always thought that their light is being pulled like channeled from the traveler to the ghost to the guardian. But maybe that light really is just being pulled from thin air. Like maybe it's being because I mean, like thinking to the splicers, and again that one card where Misrax is teaching Ido, and he's literally like pulling. He's like, feel yourself through the earth, like feel the light pass through the earth and pass through you. Like it's not coming from the traveler. The traveler, I think, is just a giant fucking ghost.
Yes, I think that is probably one of the best descriptions for the traveler we have had,
I
bar none. Like I think the
I
traveler
think
is
that's
a
what's going
giant
on here.
ghost. Is
Yeah,
essentially what it is.
it can channel light, albeit on an insane scale. Like I mean, little ghosts that we can channel light, but like we as guardians, we have to build it up. Like we got to build up our super, we've got to build up our
Right.
grenade, our melee. Like the only thing we really have ready access to is like our jump. Um, but like we have to build these abilities up. We have to build up enough energy in us to release it. The traveler can do that on a massive scale, like on a planetary size scale of I've built up enough energy, now I'm terraforming a planet. Like I truly think that the traveler is just a giant fucking ghost.
I think 110% that is exactly what it is. And our ghost has described like darkness zones as being a place where they can't feel, they're disconnected from the traveler. And I think it's our ghosts even don't understand that they feel a connection to the traveler through the light because all light is
Yes.
connected.
Yes. And so by being disconnected in that darkness zone, the true thing that's happening there is they are disconnected from the light.
Yeah. Like their pathway to get to light is weak, and therefore they cannot feel the traveler because the traveler, you know, connects to all light everywhere all the time.
Which again, if we're kind of playing with this idea, this idea of all these ghosts coalescing in one spot, I think is just conduit like light conduits, right? Like you've just got all these junction boxes that you've now just piled into one room and said, okay, everything, every wire that light can travel through is now funneled into this one single room. Okay, flip the switch, and then everything just gets pumped into that one area.
Right, and the traveler describes the ghosts as being pieces of itself. Like and it's
Right.
described as when a ghost dies, it feels like a little piece comes back to it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's twofold. It's bringing these pieces of itself back into it in the most literal sense of the word. And now every little piece that comes back in, either via unfortunate demise or physically being there, is amplifying its ability to tap into all of the light energy of the universe.
Yep. Yep. Which I have another kind of little like idea thing that's been mulling around in my head about the Pale Heart as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think more and more like I don't think the Pale Heart. I can't say it's not. The Pale Heart is not a physical space inside the Traveler. We are not actually inside the physical circle ball thing floating above the Earth. I am more and more into this idea of we are either in the Traveler's mind space, or we are truly in some sort of singularity, similar to the distributary. We just have a ready access point in and out of it by way of the triangle portal.
Sure. I mean, it is a meeting of light and dark, and the last meeting of light and dark is what created the distributary singularity. Um, yeah, it hard to say because we do literally hear like the traveler screaming in there.
Right. And
Uh,
that's where I'm curious if I'm starting to lean more to the idea of like we are in its consciousness. If it
yeah,
is a sentient being, like
using
it would
dark
have
to access its to
yes,
like turn its mind into a physical
into a
place.
physical space.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that
and
would
then
track.
and then the light being around there is, and we know this going through the campaign, we're all this darkness is just thoughts, right? Like the consciousness happening, and as we enter areas, it's now manifesting itself in a physical way. That's the whole reason why we come across our original res area, and it's all like handsy,
Yeah.
like I just I love mentioning the hands because it freaks Smith out. That's why we come across, Zavala's homestead. That area there, I mean, for all intents and purposes, that was his home. Albeit recreate where we're at there, where we see it there is just a recreation of his home area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm starting to think more and more that that's what's happening here with the Pale Heart and where we're at. But again, the fact that the ghosts can interact with it and kind of pump light into it is making me lean more and more towards that idea of consciousness. We are in the traveler's conscious thoughts, and we're just manifesting this physical space.
Yeah, and this may also be crossing into the realm of like eldritch being that we'll never truly be able to understand what is
Yeah,
happening at like a fundamental reality bending level.
like if you
Um
do understand it, you turn to stone.
yeah. It's may seem an oddity to compare, eldritch horror, Cthulhu, old god kind of shit to the Traveler, but in a lot of ways there are
It's kind of
similarities.
similar.
Like
It's really
so
close.
far beyond our realm of understanding that who's to say that our ideas of how to describe this space are even in the same ballpark as what is fundamentally happening. Like it's so far outside our realm of comprehension.
Right.
uh, but yeah. um so the only thing Micah says here, that is kind of note, is they say that the problem is the witness's influence, as far as why the traveler is not healing, um, you know, why the ghosts are having difficulty healing the traveler. Like they're helping, but they're not, really restoring things in a meaningful way yet. The problem is the witness's influence. The traveler is a being made of light, but seems to be handling the darkness just fine. So Micah here implying that the fact dark energy is now in the traveler, not really the issue. The issue is that the witness is trying to twist everything.
Yeah.
But if
And it
left on
and
its
it
own, like it could handle dark here without a problem.
right. And I think that's something that is important too. Remember, the witness is an amalgamation of many consciousnesses, albeit now it seems, and again, up until the point where we kill it, and it says that it starts off with we and then transitions into I. I'm thinking there really was a singular consciousness in there that was that was incredibly strong-willed, that was kind of like forcing these other consciousnesses to like follow its own will and like suppress them in some sort of way, obviously like through ways of the statues and stuff like that. Um so the fact that there are that many consciousnesses in this space, I mean, we that's the whole reason we can access the area to hurt the witness, is because not only are the travelers' thoughts and ideas manifesting in physical ways, any consciousness that is in there starts manifesting in physical ways. So I mean, that's the whole reason the tower exists. That's the whole
Yep.
reason the entire dead space exists. That's the reason Io is like part. Ikora crash lands on Io, and I put that in quotation marks inside the Traveler because that's what she thinks of, and so that manifests. It's
Yeah.
it's it's truly an insane space the Pale Heart is.
Yes, it absolutely is. And it makes it hard to like really nail down necessarily why XYZ works the way it does in there, but it's also fun to
Yeah,
theorize. So
but yeah, the witness. Well, real quick, the witness being able to push that will outward and again having that mastery of darkness to be able to manifest it in a way that is suppressing light in the Traveler. I think that's a very significant thing. And like what Micah said, if the witness wasn't there, if it was just darkness in there, I truly believe that the Traveler would have no problem. Like it would just be an integration thing.
yeah,
Because again, I'm going back to that idea of that the Traveler might actually be the gardener and therefore would have access to both tools and be able to wield them expertly. Um, I think that's a possible true statement.
yeah. The next ghost that we um run out to find is a ghost named Link. And although we don't get any like big theory crafting here, this is kind of a reminder from way back when the lore book Ghost Stories came out in Forsaken. Link was mentioned in that as being one of the members, I think maybe founding members, of a group of unpartnered ghosts that worked as a covert surveillance operation for Ikora's Hidden, known as the Watchful Eye. I
We have
and
we have ghosts. We have SEAL Team 6 ghosts.
Yeah, we
Is that
absolutely
what's
do.
happening here?
We absolutely do. Uh,
Holy shit!
and so we find Link on the moon, Link being a member of this Watchful Eye. And in the process of finding them, we find that there are Hive that are also being, the term we have thrown around is finalized, that are these like statuesque versions of the Hive that the witness has, set them in their place kind of thing.
Yep,
And this is just showing that like there is no allegiance that can save you from the witness. Even the hive, even the witness's allies, quote unquote, are being subject to the final shape, just as everything else is.
yep. And I think the witnesses the new forces that we run into in game are kind of like the true like he believes that this is what should exist.
Yes.
The little bats, the subjugators, all that stuff, and like I don't think that I know the subjugators and the what's the little guys
You
that
have to
look
be more
they're like little
specific than that.
they're sorry I know I'm bad at this the little are adherents, is that what they are? Abjugators,
The melee guys that
the smaller ones that do the strand and stasis. Um,
yeah, I don't know what I just call them stasis and strand scions, because I'm
but that
terrible.
scions, all of those things resemble scions, and
Yes.
again, I think that's the witness's obsession with consciousness because of the scion's psychic abilities. I mean, that was a whole like we ran into a card somewhere or a dialogue or something like he sent Nezarek specifically to go mess with these people and like
Yes.
be their god. Like I think the witness sees that as like possibly the perfect race, and so like a lot of his creatures that he's created in this space resemble that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know that we have anything to point at him thinking of them as like a perfect race or being obsessed with the psychic energy. Uh, but they're very clearly modeled after Scions, and he
I
did
know, tinfoil hat thing.
he did sick Nezarek on them specifically. So it might just be that body structure or that race's DNA, they discovered to be particularly malleable and easy to
Sure.
make, new things out of. I don't know. I but yeah, so this one I'm gonna preface has a lot, and I mean a lot, to do with the current episode. and we're gonna really, really need to not go down the rabbit hole.
Okay, I will try. I will try.
Because we're gonna have a whole episode dedicated to the current episode. Uh,
Yes.
but
Ah,
so
I see what you did there.
this next ghost is named Bean, and Bean is on Nessus. And what we do is we go through the and I want to say inverted spire, but I know that's not right.
I'm gonna keep getting it wrong.
But essentially, it is the strike where Kargan, the like big cabal scion, is the one that we're chasing through the Vex architecture, and they're trying to get into the Vex network. What we learn from this, from the dialogues that are stated, is that the reason Kargan is back because our character and our ghost, I guess, are like, we killed him. Why is he here? Is this confirms the Cabal are able to clone scions, which I think maybe lends into that whole scions have very malleable DNA or DNA that
Yeah.
can be cloned very easily, similar to Cabal. And from the witness's perspective, like the witness can just pump out Shadow Legion, and I'm guessing by nature of having a more psionic uh just makeup, that the race is more lean towards psionic, it's probably a lot easier for scions to learn how to wield stasis and strand than your normal
I
cabal
like it.
centurion.
I like it. If you've got access to the cloning facilities that Callus had, and you know that there's a race that out there that's psychically attuned, I mean that to me fits everything that the witness wants.
Yeah, absolutely. uh but so we learned that cloning works on scions. Kargan has been cloned, which explains why Kargan keeps popping up. uh Kargan was trying to access, similarly to the first time we ran this strike, the Vex data on Oxa, which is the Scion Future Sight machine. This was a machine we talked about way back in our Cabal history that allowed the Scions to get glimpses of the future. And Ghost finds here info that suggests that the Oxa machine and the Future War Cult machine are in fact the same thing,
Yeah,
or the same design at the very least.
that was like a kick in the teeth to me. I was like, does that mean that like Lakshmi literally had a portion of the Ox machine or some type of access terminal to the Ox machine, and she was actually using it?
That seems to be the implication to me, or
Yeah,
because we now know Lakshmi is technically Maya, it may be a case that um, that information was found in the Vex network about Oxa, and they just used the blueprints to build it, essentially.
yeah,
But so regardless, Kargan was trying to get access on the Oxa machine. Ghost says Future War Cult, and this one and Oxa appear to have been the same thing. Kargan was specifically also trying to access the Soul Divisives, which is the witness controlled sect of the Vex. The Soul Divisives research on the Veil in addition to the Oxa machine. Uh, which that has a whole lot of implications. We know,
like why would
well,
a clone?
what I would say is the cloning portion we can maybe leave out. Like, that's just a reason why Kargan keeps coming back, why we
Right,
have a
right, right.
billion little Scion
I'm
dudes.
I'm just trying
Um,
to follow the thought pattern of like why would a clone try to access information on the veil of which the original creator of the clone would possibly already have that access.
well,
I mean, that's implying that the original owner doesn't have access.
and that's the thing. Kargan was cloned, but the fact that Kargan's trying to find research uh, on the Soul Divisive tells us that Kargan is not allied with the Witness. Like, They're trying to steal information from the
Right.
witness's Vex.
Right.
I I am suspecting, and actually they go on to say Kargan was under orders from a scion Atzat, not the witness, to do this. So I see this as
Shit, I forgot about that.
Kargan wants to, and slash Kargan slash Atzat want to find information about the old Oxa machine, which Atzat is the scion that created the Oxa machine back in when the scions were still with the Cabal on the Cabal homeworld. So Atzat would have the ability to remake it.
Given the original,
Give
like
right,
if they had access to the original blueprints and stuff, they could just rebuild the whole thing. Okay.
exactly.
And I'm remembering that now. They even talk about how like maybe there's a sub faction of scions that are like breaking off.
Yes, and that this is confirmation of that. Like
Yeah.
Atzat is positioned themselves as the leader of this uh, little faction of Cabal and Shadow Legion scions, and maybe other actual Cabal as well, that are forming their own thing, separate from Keitel, separate from the Witness. They're their own little pocket faction trying to do their own thing.
Sure.
Now, what I think is interesting, the only Oxa machine that we know currently that survives is Future War Cult's machine. Future War Cult's machine was built, I think, or at least piloted primarily by Lakshmi slash Maya. Another version of Maya found the veil and tried to become the conductor to its chorus. I'm wondering if Atza is following a similar thought pattern of, if I can see the future, but I can't parse out like which bits are the correct future, like with Future War Cult's machine, they get like flashes of possibilities, but they don't get a this is the one you're on course for kind of thing. If in Atzat's mind, it's all right, let's create a machine that can see the future. And if I use the veil to plug 15 people into the Oxa machine and I am conducting them as a chorus and can focus all of that mental energy. It's almost like they're trying to make their own version of the Vex network.
That's what it sounds like. Either that, or they are actually under the impression that they could, with enough consciousnesses, form force future to do something, like
Maybe.
force events to happen.
So some interaction there is their goal between the Veil and this future sight Oxa machine. Now, Ghost then theorizes this is a defector branch within the Shadow Legion. It's not loyal to the Witness, like we were talking about. However, Ghost also finds logs that show Kargan's access to the Vex network was halted as they were trying to research these things. And who halted that access was not the Vex. It was one Maya Sundaresh.
Boom! Name drop. Full
So
circle.
going all the way back, like this is likely, we theorize, a version of Maya Sundaresh that is still within the Vex network, that is still keeping an eye on the Oxa and presumably Veil information. And when they saw someone try to access it, went, no, and shut that door from inside
Access
the network.
denied. I like it. I like it. I love it. But I'm also I'm you said not to tangent. Fighting the urge. Nope, gonna happen. I am thinking that it might be an evil Maya clone that shut him down.
Hard to say. There's nothing to say that this version of Maya, there's 227 of them.
That's what I'm saying.
There's nothing to say this version of Maya didn't have purely altruistic, like, you shouldn't know that stuff. Let's stop that. And there could be a completely different version of her that has more, evil intent or malicious intent that is doing other things at the same time. Like, so it's hard to know
Yeah.
which Maya we're talking about and what that Maya's motivations may be.
God, ah! If we fight a Vex Maya, I'll be happy.
I think we're definitely going to see her come into play in some fashion. But the next ghost that we go out and find is a ghost by the name of Akasha in the Dreaming City. And here we find that Akasha was exploring the Ascendant Plane's ley lines, and that the data in the Ascendant Plane points to Xivu Arath as having abandoned the witness. Actually, Akasha's information shows that while we've been distracted with fighting the witness, Sivu has been using the Ascendant Plane as supply routes and is amassing supplies and soldiers. Anyone that is not, anyone of the hive that is not beholden to the witness, she is pulling them to her to resupply and form an army. Because we can't deal with the Ascendant Plane right now. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Uh,
Unmaking the universe is probably a little more
yeah,
important.
yeah. But so we know what Sivu's kind of up to at the moment, and that is just amassing power, amassing forces, and is presumably going to be a thread we have to tie up in the future.
Now, remind me again. We have completely removed her
Connection to her throne world.
K, but we have not removed her worm.
Correct.
So two things are true here then. The hunger persists, and that hunger being the hunger for war. So she can't, like, because her worm ties her to war, she can't not war. Just like Sabathoon's was tied to deception, so she can't not be deceitful. Oryx's was tied to knowledge. He had to consume as much knowledge as he could, else his worm starve him to death and kill him.
Yeah. Now, I guess
So
to preface a little bit, we don't 100% know what has happened to Sivu. We know that it's stated by Eris that she has cut Sivu off from her throne world. But functionally, what all that might mean,
okay,
we don't
okay,
100% know.
okay. I'm very much under that assumption that like she still has her worm, so she still has to do what she's been doing for the last billion years.
I think that's probably a safe assumption.
Yeah, and that she's mortal. Neat. It doesn't stop the tithing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because we saw with, I mean, I guess Savathun was a different scenario, but like, I don't know that Sivu could sustain herself if her worm was gone.
Right.
But yeah, if she does have to keep on the warpath, I guess there's nothing that states what warpath that needs to
Right.
be, though.
Exactly.
So if she's amassing supplies and soldiers, maybe it is not necessarily to deal war with us, or at least not right away. Maybe it is a like, all right, I'm gonna go out into the universe while you guys are dealing with that, and go conquer some other places so that I can stay alive.
Right. Either in the hopes to stay alive, or the which is I think a similar um, pretense of war. Maybe pretense is the wrong word. I don't know. It sounded like a good word at the time. To amass more supplies and more knowledge and
Yeah,
more forces and stuff to war further and conquer more.
yeah. I mean, resupplying yourself is part of the strategy of being in a war. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean
Don't know how
that's
picky her
why
worm is
that's
on
why the
that.
German yeah, that's why the German Eastern Front against Russia completely failed. They cut off their own supply lines from themselves and all their soldiers froze to death because hey, winter in Russia is cold,
Who would have thought?
not as tropical as winter in Germany.
uh, but so We get that little bit from Akasha, and it kind of informs us as like, hey, Sivu's off doing stuff. That'll be a thing we have to deal with later.
Which I take that as being like, and we even saw it in like the little post cutscenes where like there's a hive god or a hive something reaching for a sword. You
It
and I
is
both.
Sivu. It
It's
100%
Zivu.
is
There's
Sivu.
no way it's
Like
not.
the
So
the
like I
silhouette, it matches. So
yep, it's not, it doesn't have the crown, it doesn't have the oryx, sideways head thing. Like yeah, it's Zivu.
yeah.
And I think that's going to be that. Do we know which episode that is, Myth? Is that the
Uh,
next episode after the current one, or is that the third episode? I know it's the
we
heresy one.
Yeah, I believe that's the third episode. I think the next
Okay.
one is Scorn, based on
Oh,
the
and we
photos
even
we've
got a
seen.
little, well, and we even got a little preview of that through the Vidoc. What, two Tuesdays ago,
Yeah.
where they were like we're going back to the dreadnought. What if we were the navigator type thing?
Yep.
Which I'm starting to think that might be how we get out of Soul. Like that's just
That would be
so.
really cool. Not
I
gonna
think
lie.
I think we're gonna drive the fucking giant worm ship dreadnought out of the fucking solar system.
Be real neat.
Anyway,
I'd be okay with that.
yeah, yeah. You get that and a couple of Exodus ships, we are set. We got ourselves a fleet, baby.
Yep. Just upload failsafe to another Exodus ship and
Done. Oh, she'd be pissed. Well, she'd be able to leave Nessus.
Right,
So I
that's
guess she
true.
wouldn't be too pissed. Like, as soon as she got to the helm, she's like, this is awesome. And then Osiris says something, and she's like, I see your politeness filter is broken too. Noted. She's
that was a
snarky.
fun
I
bit.
like her.
So the next ghost we find then for Micah is Citrine, who is on Mars. And from here we don't learn a bunch, but we do learn that Mars is in a state of flux. And we've seen this already with like little pockets of Mars in Spire of the Watcher, where it's like you can see the field of farmland that is growing in
Yep.
this little pocket of the past, and then it's just barren in current time, quote unquote. It seems like these fluxes are either still happening or are getting worse. um and we learn that the Mars as a whole is seems to be covered in these, has portals through time opening and closing all over it. And Mara states that she believes she can keep these closed for a time. So Mara able to exert some power, some force of will over this time bendiness that's happening on Mars, but
Dude, that has
it won't be
huge
permanent.
implications. The main Clovis facility is on Mars. Clovis Bray
Rasputin's
could just
facility.
Rasputin's facility. All these people could just blip into the current time and be like, "Neat. Now what can I do with this?"
Now, that is a thing we have never seen people pass from one to
Right.
the other.
We've
There
just seen
was
pockets
a,
of like machinery and
yes.
landscape and stuff. We've never seen a being blip in or out.
Now, if I recall, though, in our Braytech history, I think focusing on Anna, she did see a pocket on Mars of a conversation Golden Age her had with somebody else. I don't remember all the details. But it was like watching a movie. It wasn't a
Right.
that she could reach out and interact with it or that they knew she was there. It was just like you're just seeing a vision of things that happened in the past.
Seeing a memory, because and again, thinking
Yes.
back to how that all fits, right. Mars was taken by the Witness, shrouded in darkness, similar to Titan, Mercury, all Io, all those. Now it's just like permeated with darkness energy. So now Mercury itself, the physical planet, is remembering things of its past, and remembering is like that's just a term we're using here. Like
Yeah.
those things are being replayed or re brought up because the the particles that make up that section of Mars experienced that, and so when brought down to a consciousness level, can re-experience that.
Yep.
And so I think you're right. I think it is more of a memory being played out in front of them.
But so that's another thread that I think is just them leaving open, like, hey, we've got ideas for maybe this could turn into something later. But for now, Mara's keeping it under wraps.
Maybe we end up with like 14 Annas all of a sudden,
Hey,
and like like another 30 Elsies and like 27 Clovises. That's bad. This is
That
getting worse. The
yes,
more I
let's
think about
not.
it, it
Let's
gets
not.
worse.
But after Mars, we go off to find Peach, who leads us back to
I can
Navoda.
I just take a second here? We have Link, we have Peach. How do we not get Bowser and Mario? This
Because
is
copyright is
That's
why.
what I'm saying. Like, why are all these ghosts obsessed with Nintendo?
Yeah, because Sony and Bungie do not want the Nintendo lawyers showing up at
Nope.
their doorstep.
Nope.
Uh,
Real close though.
but yeah, so we go out and find Peach, which leads us through the Navoda strike. And this is another one where they're like, we already killed Navoda. Why is Navoda back? And Micah provides some theories that one of two things is happening that has brought Navoda back. Either it's an illusion and Savathun has masqueraded another witch as Navoda to infiltrate her sister's ranks, or it is Navoda who is brought back via necromancy.
I think either one of these is true. Either one of these ideas is viable.
Yeah,
Like
like
there's no evidence like clearly pointing one way or another. I don't know. I don't know that Navoda has her own throne world so that she could just,
I don't think so. I don't think she's strong enough for
self-res
that.
over and over and over again. Yeah. I don't think so. Well, I guess did Omnigul have one?
I don't believe so.
If Omnigul didn't, then I'm going to say she didn't. I mean, I know I'm drawing the similarity between, well, that's just the same strike but with a new boss. No, I truly think, like, as far as like a power level is concerned, like the people who had throne worlds were like Crota, Oryx, Savathun, Rat. I mean, the high level Marasov. Like, I mean, Petra doesn't have her own throne world, so why would Navoda have her own
I
throne
mean,
world?
Oryx's own daughters don't have their own throne world as far as we know.
Exactly.
They were just hanging out in Oryx's throne world.
Yep. Telling on their brother.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think you're right. I think that there's not enough evidence here to point to either one. I would lean more towards the idea of a Savathun trickery, just because the entire world of Destiny runs on wishes and Savathun fuckery.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be my first inclination.
Well, I mean, and the only person that we have reason to believe knows necromancy, with Nokris being gone, is Savathun.
God damn it!
Unless this is going to be Nokris coming back yet again.
I mean, if he did truly learn necromancy and he was able to do something about it, who's to say he wouldn't put something in place for himself?
Who's to say he wouldn't have his own throne world if Crota did?
Oh shit!
Like, maybe that is a case where, you know.
Did we go to his throne? Whose throne world were we in when we quote unquote killed him? And I'm putting that in
I
quotations.
don't know if we were in a throne world or just the Ascendant plane.
Just the Ascendant plane. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember how that was presented to us.
I don't remember either. I remember going into that darkness area, that Ascendant plane area, and he was a boss there, and we had to kill him. But I don't remember. I remember why, because that was when Savathun was trying to learn necromancy from him.
And they were intercepting our messages. It was during Arrivals is when all that was happening.
Yep. God, that was holy shit.
I know. Come a long way.
Yeah, no shit.
But yeah, so all that aside, the next ghost we go out to find is a ghost by the name of Anwar on Europa. And Anwar.
This one sounded familiar to me too.
So Anwar was described as once being a close confidant of the Speaker. Was one of the ghosts that was floating around the Speaker in D1. But the Speaker's death shook his faith, and he now believes that darkness is a universal force that must be tended as to not grow unruly. Those are exact quotes there.
Again, thinking back to that idea of the gardener, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these forces exist. They are pulling on Ulantans. They are symmetrical. They live in they need to live in harmony. If one outgrow, if you let darkness grow, you have weeds everywhere. You have this amalgamation of thorny, weedy, thistly bullshit that is my backyard. if you once a year tend to it and it looks really really pretty for like three weeks, then you have the other side of it. You have the light side of it. So yeah, it's holding true through all of this idea that like even just tending to the light and helping the light grow, you do still have to let a little bit of darkness there, right? Like a garden isn't a utopian space where it's all pretty and all beautiful. There's bugs, there's all sorts of stuff, but those bugs live in harmony. Some of those bugs are helpful to the plants. Some of the things that happen in there are actually helpful to promoting growth. So yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Uh, but so we go to the pyramid ship on Europa is the last place Anwar was seen. And as we travel there, we get some dialogue from Cade as well, who mentions that we've never figured out who piloted this pyramid,
That
which is a very has a whole lot of implications.
I mean, we always thought that like we were possibly the intended pilots for it.
Right, that that was the offer of us becoming a disciple, was like, hey, here's your ship, because the ship
Here's a
does respond to us and our
yep,
actions. And Cade and Micah kind of go back and forth a little bit and imply that like this ship seems eager to serve somebody. Like almost
yes,
like it doesn't have a master, or if it did, that master is now gone. And again, this is at a time that the witness is still canonically alive because the raid hasn't happened yet.
yep,
Uh so like even if we weren't the intended pilot, it seems to imply that we might be able to take ownership in some fashion. Uh but regardless, we travel through the ship. We reach a dissenter statue that is within the ship, who we speak to and gives us the again. Witness is still alive at this point, and they give us the whole like, "You're running out of time. What was made must be unmade." And
so
Anwar,
cryptic.
yeah, I know. And Anwar is unfortunately found dead. Uh, when we bring Anwar's body back to Micah, Micah reveals something that we had, we had already known, but it's nice to have confirmation. And in a more story forward way, Micah reveals that they knew Cade before he was a guardian. And Micah kind of talks about time on Europa and that Cade was assigned as a personal bodyguard of Maya Sundaresh, which we also went over a little bit in our Cade series. Um, and the thing that we haven't seen in any of the lore cards, Micah says that Cade was a mentor for Micah and helped her cope with the isolation of Europa. And although it's not stated, I am presuming that to be after Micah became an exo.
Yep, I'm thinking you're right on there.
Because outside of that, there's really not much reason for those two. I mean, the one interaction we know did happen while Micah was a child, Cade tried to shoot her. So,
well, well, tried to shoot someone.
uh,
Maybe definitely shot his buddy and just didn't report it. Remember?
yeah, but there was that like that gut reaction shot at something moving, and Micah described feeling the heat pass over her head as she was running through the snow.
Yep.
So regardless, I'm assuming this to be Cade was the one that kind of helped Micah through being an EXO and coming to terms with it and just being a friend for however long they were together on Europa. Uh, but the next ghost is Hulong, who is another member of the Watchful Eye. Uh, and this ghost was running recon on Savathun's throne world. Um, and here, Cade asks a question that many people in and out of game have asked, and says, "Why did Savathun get the light?" And Micah explains that it's because the Hive, when they were Krill, even before they were Hive, they were chosen by the Traveler to have light long before humanity existed. Uh, And Cade comes back with, but they're not those people anymore. All the harm they've done, that ain't fair. And Micah says that, the traveler is not always fair. It is not always right either. Uh, and
I think
and
those are big,
yes,
like that's something that I think that's something humanity and Guardians have struggled with too. Like we always kind of poke at Zavala, and a lot of people poke at Zavala like your God doesn't speak to you and you fight for it anyway. And he's there as I think it was during the season of the haunting. He was like the traveler is not my God, and it goes on like that. But like it is this idea of like if this is a sentient conscious being, there's no way it could always be right.
right.
Like it's not omnipotent. Fuck, omnipotent. it's not a god. It is just a being.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It is a being of far more power and maybe beyond our understanding, but it is
sure.
fallible.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And Cade kind of rationalizes that to himself and goes, "Yeah, the traveler sees our potential, can't abandon it." And he says that feels right in my head, but not in my heart. Uh, and
Oh.
and this, if we want to correlate this to the hive, like the traveler sees the potential for the krill, for what the hive used to be a force of, eh, its version of good, whatever it perceives that to be.
Sure.
And because the potential is there, it doesn't want to abandon the race as a whole. Like,
Well, so let me poke at that for just a second. Look at Lazaku.
exactly.
If the traveler just completely abandoned all of them, we wouldn't have Lazaku doing what Lazaku is doing. Lazaku being the hive wizard that is a lucent brood wizard in the lost sector.
Hmm.
That every time we've gone and replayed it, she has more and more. Like I have not come across a duplicate dialogue of hers yet, and it's awesome. Uh, but she specifically talks about how like this one is with the light and this one will help you, talking about herself, and that she doesn't necessarily see Savathun's plan as the golden rule and the way to go. She likes that idea of hey, there's more to this life than just killing everything around us.
And from the traveler's point of view, it's this idea of like, do you damn the entire peoples because of the mistakes of the society as a whole, or do you, in the traveler's way, offer that unexpected grace and allow the potential for some of them to become more?
I mean, that's the entire idea of the gardener, right?
Exactly,
Like
as stated in
I'm gonna
Unveiling.
exactly like I'm gonna in I want to see growth in as many ways as I can to see what the potential would be, just to see what would happen. Like, why does everything have to come down to this idea of the final shape?
And Cade, rationalizes that. He's like, I can understand that thought process, but when emotions are in play, it's like, but I can't. I
Yeah,
understand. I understand that on paper, but it doesn't feel right to me.
yeah. The logic of it makes sense. The here and now of right in front of my face does not.
Yeah, yeah. But the other thing we learn from Hulong is that they have found data around Savathun that suggests that yes, Savathun is against the witness, which we already knew. Um, but not only that, Savathun expects us to win in this fight and expects us to win with such certainty that she's already starting to put other plans into place for
I'm gonna
what
call
happens
bullshit.
afterwards.
Bullshit. I mean, okay, maybe not bullshit because that would be Sabathun saying she's going to put in 1,001 contingency plans for 1,001 different possibilities,
Yeah.
and then once she gets to that one, she's going to start on 1,002. Yeah, so I don't know. I think this is just Savathun being Savathun.
Probably. And I guess from Savathun's point of view, it's like, well, I can start spinning up some things, so put some irons in the fire for after the witness is gone. And hey, if I'm right, awesome. I have some plans in motion. If I'm wrong, well, it doesn't really matter anyway because it's the end of everything.
We're all fucked anyway. I like that logic. Like that logic makes sense to me. Shit. You're
Uh,
not wrong. That's the worst part. It's like it's and it plays into her favor too. And I don't know why this it bugs me so much. I guess this is just like her nature. Like this is her what is it, demiurge is to be deceitful and lie. Like she was deceitful and lying all the way down to the bottom of fundament. Like she wasn't really sharing with her sisters that her father's familiar was whispering to her
right?
and whatnot. So like I think she is just compelled to be deceitful and lying. So like even after being rezzed as dying and then rezzing as a guardian and making us give her her memories back, it I, all of this was just lying, just as much lying and deceit as she could, because that's just her nature. She can't not lie.
Yeah. It's just when that has been a core part of your personality and like how you interact with the world for so long, you can't just turn it
For a
off.
billion years, yeah.
Yeah. But so the next ghost, the second to last ghost, is Balthazar, who is a scholar ghost. And Balthazar has gone to the moon pyramid, which has been described as having been abandoned by the witness. And I misspoke earlier. This is the one where they specifically say it is now yearning for a master. Uh,
Oh yeah,
as
yeah,
we are
yeah.
progressing through the pyramid, and it is here that we hear the memory between Nezarec and the witness, where the witness says, "The Scions kneel to you. Their faith is shattered, and they will look to you for guidance, for truth. Sow the seeds of discord that will pave the way for our victory. Preach unto their greatest truth of the darkness, so they may see beyond the veil. Go forth, Nezarec, and show them the power of the veil, the dark of the deep, the edge of the knife." And that is the last little bit of the memory we get.
So it is I'm making an assumption here. Is he sending Nezarec off with the veil, the physical thing, the veil? No, because the veil's on at this point in time. The veil. Well, I guess we don't know when
No,
this
no, no,
memory
no.
played out.
If Nezarec is being sent to the Scions, this is before
Yeah,
the Scions were even conquered by
part
the
of the
Cabal.
yeah. This is like ancient
And
history.
we know Savathun stole the veil from Nezarec's ship. So absolutely, he's probably sending Nezarec with the veil in tow to go do whatever with the Scions.
I mean, that explains why Nezarec had it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, why would the witness entrust its most valued thing that caused it to be the witness to a lieutenant? Okay,
Right.
Nezarek's probably higher up than a lieutenant. He's a disciple. He's second in command. He's probably a general, but for all intents and purposes, some do nothing dude. Like, I mean, the witness is the greatest bad the universe has ever known, and Nezarec is kind of a dick. Like,
I mean,
he's
I could maybe, because Nezarec is feeds off mental energy, and the Scions are
sure.
a very mental and psychic peoples. I could
Yep.
maybe see uh the witness anticipating Nezarec using the veil. Like maybe that's how Nezarec showed up in all the Scions dreams and nightmares and such, was
Oh, that's
they
right, because all the
were
guns
being
are his.
interacted with by
Yes,
the veil,
that's
without
right.
even knowing it, because they operate in that like psychic space.
That's right. We talked about that. All of all of the lore cards on all the guns are they're scions. They're not people,
Yeah.
and they're like the Nezarek's like what was it? Not his disciples. I can't think of what they were. His followers or
His
worshippers or
cult.
whatever. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, his cult. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which also explains why the helm of Nezarek looks so much like a scion helm.
Yes, absolutely. Like, hard to know what and again, we don't really know much about where Nezarek came from before he was a disciple. So, like, was he from the Scions in some fashion? Like, was he some grand old Scion that the witness found and like uplifted? Like, we don't know what the connection there is.
Right. Was he like Callus, where he was like thrown out and it was just
Right.
drifting in space and needed purpose? And well, the witness loves that word purpose.
Yes, it does.
Between that and salvation, that's like I salvage your salvation, your purpose, and blah blah. Yeah, that's the witness's mo.
Yeah.
That's the witness's demiurge. Oh, there it is.
There
There
you
it
go.
is.
Is purpose.
There it is. Purpose.
So, by what god is the witness wielded?
I know, and it's in the raid. It straight up tells us there's a voice in the dark. There is somebody above the witness. I have I just I'm just gonna spoil it now. I am 100% now. There is somebody above the witness. There's a shit. I know I tangent. I keep telling myself I'm not going to. 2 seconds is all I ask. The ship, the first knife ship, the lore color on that. I know we're going to dive into all this at some point in time. Mara and Ikora are having this conversation, and Mara is like, "Well, the witness even calls itself as a knife. Like, so who's wielding the witness?" And it's like, "Ah, damn it! Myth was right. Myth was right. Let it be known. Myth was right."
But yes, we'll dive into that in much more depth later on. But so we see this little scene while finding Balthazar. We do recover Balthazar, bring him back, and the final ghost we are sent after is Hecate in the Cosmodrome. And Hecate is another scholar ghost who studied under Toland.
Fucking Toland.
And as we are going through the Cosmodrome to find them, we detect a house salvation catch, which is noted as being odd that it would be here and not serving the witness in the Pale Heart because there is house salvation there. And we find that we have interrupted an arms deal of sorts between House Dusk and Aramis, in which House Dusk was offering Aramis a prime servitor in exchange for weapons, which tells us a few things. And these are mentioned in game as well. This means Aramis is ether starved, more so than even the Dusk refugees that don't like have a house really.
Yeah.
Uh, and that she is no longer working for the witness because she's trying to supply herself with just food at this point. Because
Well,
that
and
is
we know that she completely abandoned him.
yeah,
There's a lore card that talks about how like if the end of the universe is happening, she just wants to go out and be with her mate, and
yep,
like that's like she abandons everything.
yeah. So she in that lore card is going to go out and try to find Athras, who is Aramis's mate. And that was her idea. Is I'm going to start roaming the universe again to find Athras and put all this behind me. Uh, and but she needs food to do it. And for
Yeah,
those that aren't aware, servitors like pull in kind of surrounding energy and materials and such, and they turn it into ether, which is what Fallen use to survive. It's not exactly food, it's more like oxygen for them.
that's what I think of it
Uh,
as. I think of it as like that was possibly part of their original atmosphere,
yes,
and like
absolutely.
their bodies, like the way that our bodies use oxygen and it combines with takes carbon. Our lungs take the carbon in our body and combine it and expel it as carbon dioxide. Their bodies do the same thing, but with ether. Whatever element ether is made of, ether enters their body, takes out whatever carbons or bad things, waste out of their body, and expels it out in the universe.
Yeah, and so they need this ether to survive, and actually that is what designates different classes of fallen or Elixni, like Dreg, Vandal, Captain, so on. The more ether they're able to consume and take in, the stronger and more, you know, uh, I guess larger and stronger
Bigger.
they
Yeah.
grow. And that, like, a Dread is just a Elixni that has been kind of ether starved compared to a Vandal, compared to a Captain, compared to a Archon. Uh, so this tells us that Aramis A hasn't left yet and is gathering resources to leave, presumably, and she does not have a servitor. She does not have a way to provide ether to herself. Uh,
So any ether is just whatever she has stored
Whatever
or
she
in
can
reserves or
store or
whatever.
scrounge up from elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Additionally, this tells us is if House Dusk is willing to give up a prime servitor, that means they have either another prime servitor or they've found some alternate means of getting ether that doesn't require a servitor, which is very interesting.
Remind me again who House Dusk is.
House Dusk is the leftovers essentially. It's
Okay, like all the random fallen and shit we
yeah,
fight in.
all the houses that we have destroyed, like none of the main houses exist anymore. Devils, kings, all them are gone. And it
Essentially, it's down to like the big three: House of
yep,
Light, which is working with us and Mithrax; House of Salvation or House of Dark, which is Aramis's previous forces who are now inside. That's I think that's any of the fallen that you see inside
yes.
the Pale Heart.
Yep.
Like that's just the leftovers. They're like, we don't know who to follow anymore, so screw it. We're gonna follow the witness into oblivion.
Yep.
And so now you're saying that House Dusk is just anyone and everyone that isn't part of those two houses.
Yep. All of the other houses were so disparate without leadership that, like, they essentially all formed together. Their remaining members all came together and said, like, we're we're not gonna survive if we don't work together. So we're gonna form a new house and we're just gonna, old grudges aside, like we just need to live. And
So I
that
mean
is what House
that
Dusk
has a
is.
well, and that has a few implications too. Like that means that there's a there's got to be a Kel.
Maybe. Like, we don't really know if a structure has formed within Dusk. It seems like it's just they're worried less about the classical hierarchy and worried more about just, do we have the means to survive?
Can I live? Yeah.
Yeah.
Living is probably a little bit more important than, hey, let's establish a central government.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. So, but we learn all of this from our time finding Hecate. And with that, we've kind of restored the last quote unquote lost ghost into Micah's flock. They're all helping on healing the traveler, and we get some words of encouragement about, yeah, it's healing, it's helping, every little bit counts. Time is short, you know, get yourself ready because they don't say this in game, but because the raid is gonna start in a day.
Yeah.
I
I do love all these missions, like, and even if you play them now, post raid they still give the little dialogue of when you go to run like one of the strikes or one of the little in-game missions or whatever for any one of these. It says like 3 days before it's giving like that little prelude thing where it's like 3 days before the final assault.
yeah,
And it's a real, it gives like a little black screen, gives you the area name that you're going into, and then 3 days before the final assault. It's this really cool way of like, if it's almost like playing it through as like a memory type thing, which is just it is really really well done on Bungie's part. I cannot stop praising Final Shape. It is really good.
all right. But with that, we're going to end this episode surrounding Micah, and this I suppose was a little less about Micah and a little more about the things we learn with Micah. Um, The next episode, which will be the final in our Micah series, at least for the time being, is going to cover specifically the Visions of the Traveler collectibles, which give us a lot of insight into uh, the traveler's thoughts and feelings as interpreted by Micah. And we can have a grand old time theorizing on that stuff because there's a lot of
There's a
really juicy
ton
stuff
in
there.
that stuff. There's also, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Myth, if we're including this or not, the feathers that you can pick up inside the cysts, that are interpreted by Mithrax, which again is where I kind of give that idea that possibly Mithrax might have some type of connection with the Traveler.
Yeah, I do intend to include those. I need to go through and get the like refine those to see and transcribe the dialogues. Because I don't remember exactly how those are presented. I
Yep.
think you're right. It's Mithrax like interpreting memories similar to what Micah does. But yeah, we need to get in there and get those, and I want to include them in the
Yeah.
next episode.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sweet. Let's do some shout outs then.
Yeah, so we have still a whole bunch that we are
Yes.
moving through.
Everyone was
Uh,
really kind to reaching out to us like while we were on break, and it every time we have a little storage area where we keep them all so that way we can just reference them really quick for shout outs. Every time Myth would post one, it's a nice little happiness to my day.
yeah, we love seeing them. So thank you, just overall for for being on this journey with us and wanting to share your thoughts. Um, but yeah, so the first comes to us from our Gmail inbox from a Titan named Exodus. And they say, I wanted to reach out to you guys after listening to today's episode and let you know how unfathomably thankful I am to the both of you. I started listening to you guys toward the end of 2022 and have been an avid weekly listener. You guys help me get through not only long work days, many hours in a drive, but also just enlighten my Destiny experience. I've always loved the lore in this game, and even more so after having you both breathe life into these stories. It always puts a smile on my face when Zor decides to name a character or each one of Tyrannus and Riven's children individually, uh,
Yes,
and tries to call back to what he named all of them just moments before.
it's a squirrel brain, man. It's a curse.
Truly a goldfish brain that is, as a Titan, I am more than happy to claim to our grand buffet.
I have to laugh. Even Bungie poked fun at Titans in that same cutscene that failsafe is like, I see your filter is turned off too. She explains a bunch of stuff to Saint, and Saint's like, I may be the great defeater of all Vex, but I'm still just a Titan. Please dumb it down.
Yes.
I was like, thank you.
Uh, but they go on to say, not to drag on, but I want to just summarize my gratitude for you both and all of those who helped you get where you are today. Because I know how much I look forward to each week of a new Myths and Stories episode, and I cannot tell you how much more my excitement for Final Shape has grown. Take care of yourselves. Just signed, just another Titan around the campfire, Exodus.
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. And like we say before, the ability to give somebody a greater appreciation for the world we are all playing through is at the end of the day the main goal. And whenever we can accomplish that, that's just great. That's wonderful.
Because at the end of the day, we all love this game. No matter how
Right.
much we bitch and we gripe about all the little things, like we all still. I mean, we're still here. If we didn't like it, we wouldn't be here. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this place a better place, one dumb titan at a time.
Absolutely. um, so the next one comes to us from again another Gmail message from a guardian named gamer tagged at least Atticus Storm, and they say, "I do hope I'm not misremembering, but I believe there's a certain lore entry that makes me think about the future of this story and this game. Something about a fleet of ships jumping through space, with ghosts and people being left behind after each jump. I thought this was something interesting and wanted your thoughts on how this is being a possible future for our guardians out there that can play out. P.S. Thank you both for the amazing work you do. You'll always have this guardian's support.
I'm trying to think of what lore card. I feel like like hearing about this. I feel like I remember something.
Yeah, and
But do you
I
got
did
anything?
some digging. I couldn't find anything that is quite what is being described here. I it does I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm remembering, or like it feels slightly nostalgic about like there's something at the back of my head.
Yeah.
The closest thing I can think of though is the ship that Sotera fired off in the Golden Age that did not have ghosts on board, but did have exos that were in like
Oh,
cryo.
the one that she describes it. She's like that's where Clovis got pissed and like
Yeah.
sectioned her off and was like, but and again, all that implying like he has no control over that ship now. Like he's lost all. It's been locked out of his command, and so as like a backup contingency plan for humanity surviving, Sotera stole this ship and sent it out on orders from Rasputin,
Yes.
who was like doing future simulations and ideas and saw the Black Fleet coming and was like, "Hey, make contingency, go." And that was the contingency that was made.
Yeah, and we cover that more in depth in our Spire of the Watcher episode. But yeah, like Rasputin got had information that said like something's coming to the soul system and it's something bad. And the whole point of Sotera originally was to map out like flight paths to potentially habitable worlds and send out ships of cryoed colonists and exos to go outside the solar system.
Yeah.
And although it was just kind of a test run, she received that information from Rasputin and proceeded with the plan of actually firing a ship down one of those trajectories towards whatever this presumed habitable world is. And so there might be a whole world populated by. I don't know if there were human colonists on board. I think it was just exos,
I honestly don't
but
remember.
there could very well be a outer solar system place where exos have sprung up and made their own little society.
This is it. We're getting Stargate.
Hey, I
Human
mean, I'm all right with it.
humans on planets that we never even thought were possible, and now they're out there.
I would just say I truly, and again, being named Frontiers is the only information we have about the next like big Destiny content. I truly hope, and it sounds like we may go outside the solar system, and it would be a wild moment to in those travels come upon other exos that are extra solar and have them meet us and be like, "Why do you look like me?" And
Yeah,
we'd be like, "Why do
yeah,
you look like
literally.
me?"
Yeah. I mean, both sides of this, like we have a little bit more information than they do, maybe. I mean, maybe they have the same information we do. We don't know.
Right? Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Uh, but yeah, so thank you. I'm not sure exactly as to the scenario you've put forward. I did some digging. I couldn't find any lore cards that sounded quite like that, but
If you can find the lore card for us,
yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
poke it.
But but yeah, so the next one here, also a Gmail inbox, comes to us from the Titan Prednax, and they say, "Hey guys, this is like my third shout out by now, but I still love the show. I'm just catching up on some episodes to get hyped up for the final shape, and was listening to the Kentark 3 Part 2 episode. Uh, Regarding the shout out talking about Elsie's time travel and it being monkey paw magic, I have my own theory and wanted to throw in my 2 cents. I think wish magic is a good idea, but sometimes is such a plot cop out in Destiny. I but still very likely. I do
I'm telling
agree.
the whole
Like
world, the whole universe, monkey paw magic and Savathun fuckery.
I
That's what Destiny runs on.
I do agree that as much fun as it is to be like, it's Ahamkara again, it would be nice every now and then for it to be like, no, not this time. There's something else
I
going
would
on.
I would love to see like in Bungie's server room, and they just have like a little sticky tab on one server and it's just labeled monkey paw magic, and then like the other one is they got like another one, they got a little sticky tab on that one and it just says Savathun fuckery, and like that is literally what Destiny runs on.
There you go. There you go. If anyone working at Bungie is listening to this, rename your server host names appropriately.
Yes, please do.
But they go on to say, since Elsie is an exo and has Vex fluid and darkness within her, what if she has her own Elsie only Vex network? She could not know how to
Shit.
use it exactly for, or if it's half there or a byproduct of her being a custom exo, or maybe gets activated when darkness and light interact at the end of a dark future, or just when she dies. But I'm thinking that however it happens, her consciousness is doing a quick transfer to the next Elsie in her network. Since she doesn't know how to control it, she just gets bits and pieces of the memory. And that would mean Elsie has really died every time. It's just her memories go to an alternate version of her or a past version of her.
Dude.
I Anyway, probably by the time you guys see this, Final Shape is out and we have more crazy things to talk about. But thank you. Signed, Predinax. I really
He's a
like
solar
this.
titan. See, I can't say all you titans out there are just crayon eating suckers, because then you come up with shit like this. Like you're all secret warlocks anyway. You wear your butt towels only because you're sad that it's not a full robe. I see how it is, dude. This is nuts, but it. I mean, it would fit.
It does.
It
It
would work.
tracks. I really like this. This is, I think, a very very good theory.
I mean, that would explain every Exo's dream.
Yeah,
Maybe they
if
really are living in a version of themselves and experiencing that on a different on within the network, and then they die or they reach the tower or whatever, and then they're reset to their current selves.
yeah, I think the Exo Dream, 100% is something related to the darkness that makes up being an Exo.
Yeah,
I I could see it being something like every Exo has this internal network with themselves, though that doesn't explain why none of the others have been able to do what Elsie does.
sure.
Um, but I think Exodream, like one theory that we've talked about, and someone on Twitter also referenced was like, is that the Exos seeing the tower that is, the spire we fight the witness at? Like, have they just been
Oh,
getting
sure.
premonitions of the
Of the
future this whole
future. Yeah,
time?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which totally possible.
Again, all darkness is connected, all light is connected. If that's
Yeah,
if that's a true statement, maybe there is on a subconscious. And that's the big thing, is like this is all happening on a subconscious level. This is happening at, like, again, the Vex don't know what they're doing, they just know exist, and so they're just doing that thing. And so this could just be a subconscious thing that's happening in every exo that sees, this tower, obelisk, or future, or whatever, and they're re-experiencing it as part of a, download upload thing. But Elsie, again, because she is who she is, like, she is a Bray at heart, like, maybe she does have a slight bit of control over it. Maybe she really can access more than the average exo. She is a custom frame, and she is a custom exo, so, like, I don't know.
right. And yeah, so really love this theory. I I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. A lot more sense than just like she can time hop because reasons. Maybe Ahamkara. Uh like I yeah. This is good
Yeah,
headcanon, I think, unless we learn something that contradicts it.
I'm keeping it.
Yeah. So thank you for that. That is
Way better than the cop out. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm with you on
100%.
that one.
Uh But yeah, so I think that is going to be the last shout out for this episode. We still have many more to go through. Thank you all for sending stuff in. We're going to continue to go through the backlog. But if you liked what you heard here and you want to support us in some way, leaving a review on your platform of choice is one of the easiest ways to do so. If you feel strongly enough and you want to leave a text review or a comment on YouTube, or reach out on Twitter at Myths and Stories, or email, which is mythsandstories@gmail.com. We love reading that kind of stuff. We come across some new theories like this, which are really cool to talk about and have those aha moments with you. But yeah, you may hear yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I know I got to give a thank you. There's too much to thank. You know what? I'm going to thank hunters, just in general.
Not just because you've been using a prismatic
Not
hunter for the
just
last week.
because Prismatic Hunter is the greatest thing I've ever touched in my entire life, and I'm absolutely in love with it, but that's also part of it. Yeah, no, I've been branching out from Warlock. I keep trying to make Prismatic Warlock work for me, and I'm approaching it too analytical, too it must fit in my Warlock box. Whereas Hunter is like, I'm a free spirit. I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want. And so I've approached Prismatic with Hunter with that mindset, and it is amazing. I have a build now where I shoot my gun and I go invisible, and that is it. And like I throw a shuriken out and I go invisible and I'm radiant. Like I love it. I freaking love Hunter Prismatic. It feels so natural to me. Like I know I'm just a closet everything. I might remake my Titan. That's just so. Thank you, hunters, for screwing with my brain, little shits. And I'm telling you, dude, Synthoceps with a grapple hunter, a grapple melee hunter, and shuriken, like, oh my god, it's stupid. You go to grapple in and you almost kill a boss. It's ridiculous. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm still just punching things as a hunter.
Yeah,
I'm
you know.
I'm I'm just a titan. I will take my crayons and happily accept them.
Oh,
Okay, that's it from me. Anything else, Myth?
that's it.
Crying is a free action, right?
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, then, from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.